Welcome to the Celestial Saga channel. We thought we controlled the galaxy. We thought we knew all the rules. But then people appeared and they just started playing jazz. Today we're going to tell you how music, improvisation, and coffee turned the whole intergalactic war upside down. Watch to the end to understand how humanity did what seemed impossible. Order! Order in the Grand Chamber! Supreme Commander Dorian Voss's powerful voice resonated through the crystalline dome of the Galactic Council. Despite his commanding presence, the chaos swirling around me seemed unstoppable. As Jackson Graves, the third speaker of the Drade Confederation, I observed my fellow representatives descend into what could only be described as a madhouse by human standards. A mixture of amusement and dread bubbled within me as I watched. "This is absurd," General Vance Drago bellowed, slamming his armored appendage against the hovering platform, making it wobble precariously. "The Lumini have maintained neutrality for over 10,000 cycles. They're peaceful to the point of absurdity. Why would they possibly?" "Because we were wrong," I interjected, my words slicing through the chamber like a plasma blade, cutting the rising clamor to silence. Hundreds of optical sensors, compound eyes, and various other sensory organs turned toward my platform. A bitter laugh escaped my primary breathing vent. We were catastrophically and embarrassingly wrong about the humans. A chilling silence settled as my thoughts spilled out. Just 3 solar cycles ago, we dismissed these bipedal creatures as insignificant. Now look at what they've done. They've brought the mighty coalition to its knees, not with brute force or superior technology, but with something none of us ever anticipated. Speaker Jackson Graves, Supreme Commander Dorian Voss's voice carried a warning. "Choose your next words carefully." "I'll be careful, Supreme Commander," I retorted, my voice steady. "Careful like we should have been when we first encountered Earth. Careful like we should have been before dismissing their diplomatic overtures. Careful like we should have been before Captain Elena Valdez destroyed our so-called impenetrable defense station with nothing but mining ships and improvised weapons." The chamber erupted into chaos again, but I pressed on, my secondary hearts pounding faster, each beat echoing louder. "You want to know why the Lumini sided with humanity? Look around. Look at what we've become. We call ourselves the Coalition of Advanced Species, yet we've forgotten the very principles that allowed us to advance." Holographic displays flashed to life across the chamber, showing footage of the recent battles. Human ships, piloted by their standards, danced through our defense grids with impossible precision. Alongside them were the sleek organic vessels of the Lumini, their crystalline structures pulsing with colors we had never seen before. "The humans didn't convince the Lumini to fight," I continued, lowering my voice to a whisper, yet it still carried throughout the chamber. "They convinced them to think, to question, to look beyond their peaceful nature and realize that sometimes, to preserve peace, one must stand against those who would destroy it." General Vance Drago's scales turned an unsettling shade of purple. "Are you suggesting that we, the Coalition, are the aggressors in this conflict?" "I'm not suggesting anything, General," I replied coolly. "I'm stating it as fact. We demanded their submission. We threatened their worlds. We assumed their technological inferiority meant they were inferior in every way." I gestured toward the latest battle footage, where a single human ship, the NSS Luca Thorn, backed by 2 Lumini vessels, was holding off an entire coalition battle group. The human captain's voice crackled through the chamber's audio system, the sound of laughter blending with tactical commands, an odd combination that made several council members' appendages twitch uncomfortably. "Now we face not just humanity's ingenuity and determination," I said, my voice taking on a dark edge, "but the Lumini's ancient wisdom and power they never showed us because they never needed to. And now they're teaching humanity how to harness that power." Supreme Commander Dorian Voss raised all 4 of his upper limbs, a gesture of absolute authority demanding silence. "What would you have us do, Speaker Jackson Graves? Surrender to these primitives?" I scanned the chamber, my eyes taking in the faces of species that had once ruled the galaxy for millennia, species that had grown complacent, arrogant, and now fearful. "No, Supreme Commander. I would have us learn from them before it's too late. Because if there's one thing we've learned about humans, it's that they're surprisingly forgiving toward former enemies. But if we continue on this path..." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Well, I wouldn't want to bet against a species that managed to make the Lumini abandon 10,000 cycles of neutrality. Would you?" The silence that followed was deafening. The only sound was the ongoing transmission of human laughter and Lumini battle songs, from the holographic displays. The war wasn't over, but in that moment, every being in the chamber knew that everything had changed. Looking back, the day we discovered Earth stands as a monument to Coalition arrogance. Our survey vessel, the Grand Seeker, had been doing what Coalition ships do best, poking sensors where they didn't belong. Captain Luca Thorne, a Zentan with far too many tentacles and not nearly enough sense, had been searching for new mining prospects in what we considered empty space. Another primitive civilization, he reported dismissively, his tentacles waving. Though I must say, they're making quite a mess of their orbital space. Fascinating how they haven't destroyed themselves yet. I remember sitting in the council chamber during that first report, my scales tingling with what I now recognize as premonition. The other representatives barely paid attention. The mean delegates were running probability calculations on resource extraction. The Vori were discussing trade routes, their mandibles clicking in rhythm. The Zentans, of course, were doing that annoying thing, where they pretended to be supremely enlightened about everything. Supreme Commander Dorian Voss, younger then but just as pompous, waved 2 of his 4 primary limbs. Add them to the observation list. Standard protocol for pre-FTL species. That should have been the end of it. But then, someone in our intelligence division actually started reading their broadcast signals. "Sir," the analyst reported, her bioluminescent patches flashing with excitement. "They're discussing plans for their first faster-than-light drive." That got everyone's attention. The Mechani representative's probability engines actually stuttered, something I'd never seen before. The Vori stopped mid-mandible click, even the Zentan tentacles froze. "Impossible!" declared high theorist Silas Tralix, her metallic frame vibrating with indignation. "Our calculations indicate at least another 3 centuries before they could achieve such technology. Their current technological level is barely Category 3. Oh, how I wish I had recorded that moment, because 6 months later, humanity didn't just achieve FTL travel. They did it without following any of the standard development paths. The Manani nearly fried their circuits trying to understand how the humans had simply skipped several steps they considered essential. They're using what?" Supreme Commander Dorian Voss's confusion was evident as all 4 of his eyes blinked out of sync, a sight that still brings me a strange sense of joy in quieter moments. "The Anderson Chen Drive," reported the thoroughly flustered analyst. It's not supposed to work this way. They're breaking at least 3 fundamental laws of physics." "Correction," interrupted high theorist Silas Tralix. "They're breaking our understanding of 3 fundamental laws of physics." That's when the political posturing began. The Vori, always thinking about profit, wanted to establish immediate trade relations. The Zentan suggested we guide these young ones toward proper civilization. The Manani were still trying to make their probability engines accept reality, but it was General Vance Drago who set us on our disastrous course. "They're dangerous," he declared, his warrior caste markings glowing with agitation. "Look at their history, at their entertainment media," General Vance Drago argued. "These humans are violent, erratic, and now they've acquired FTL technology. We can't allow them to freely roam the stars." I remember watching their global information network, trying to get a grasp on these beings. Their media certainly focused on conflict, but it also highlighted themes of peace, love, and something they called pizza, which I still fail to comprehend. Yet apparently, it was worth sparking several wars over. "They're divided," observed Ambassador Dante Thorne of the Zentar, her tentacles twisting anxiously. "Thousands of nations, cultures, languages. They can't even agree on whether their frozen water desserts should be called ice cream or gelato. How could they possibly be a threat to us?" The Coalition's initial first contact team was a disaster. We sent the most condescending group of representatives possible, led by none other than Captain Luca Thorne. To their credit, the humans remained diplomatically courteous, even when Luca Thorne suggested they might want to submit to Coalition leadership for a few centuries. The response came from their newly formed United Earth government. Ambassador Lily Tran stood before our delegation and delivered what would later be known as the thanks but no thanks speech. Though the name might not sound imposing, its content was pure diplomatic fire wrapped in the finest politeness. "We appreciate your generous offer of guidance," she said, her smile as enigmatic as ever. "But we believe we'll find our own way among the stars. We look forward to peaceful cooperation between equals." The word equals sparked multiple diplomatic disasters. The Zentar discarded their facade of enlightenment and began raving about proper galactic hierarchy. The Vori began calculating how to monopolize human trade by force. The Meccani kept crashing their probability engines, trying to make sense of it all. Only the Lumini, watching quietly from their nebula gardens, seemed unfazed. But then again, they always seemed unfazed. That's what made their eventual decision so shocking. Years later, I asked my human counterpart what they thought of us during those initial meetings. Ambassador Lily Tran laughed that uniquely human laugh, a laugh that still unsettles coalition members. "We thought you were all so adorably sure of yourselves," she said, like a bunch of professors realizing their kindergarten students had solved a problem they'd been struggling with for years. I didn't understand the reference at the time. I do now. And she was right. We weren't prepared for humans. We weren't prepared for their adaptability, their creativity, or their uncanny ability to make allies in the most unlikely of places. But above all, we weren't ready for their capacity to make even the most peaceful species in the galaxy realize that some things are worth fighting for. "Send the ultimatum," ordered Supreme Commander Dorian Voss. In my memory, that moment always unfolds in slow motion, the exact point where we transitioned from arrogance to outright foolishness. The Coalition's demands were laughable: total disarmament of Earth's military forces, supervised development of all technologies, Coalition control over all off-world colonies, and my personal favorite, a requirement that humans ask for permission before making any major scientific breakthroughs. Ambassador Lily Tran's response was broadcast to every Coalition frequency. She stood at the podium, the same serene smile on her face, and spoke just 6 words. "Thank you for such a clear answer." None of us understood what she meant, not at the time. "They're mobilizing their civilian ships," General Vance Drago reported 3 days later, almost sounding amused. "Converting cargo haulers and mining vessels into warships. How quaint." I recall watching the humans evacuate their orbital stations, not with panic, but with military precision. Later, we learned they'd been running drills for this scenario ever since their first FTL flight. As Captain Elena Valdez would later tell me, just because we hoped for the best didn't mean we weren't preparing for the worst. The Coalition's military response was overwhelming on paper: 3 battle fleets, led by our most advanced dreadnoughts, enough firepower to reduce Earth to slag. General Vance Drago practically glowed with excitement over the imminent victory. Then, the Lumini showed up. Now you have to understand something about the Lumini. Imagine the most peaceful beings you could ever conceive, then make them even more peaceful. Their entire civilization was centered around non-violence. They lived in their nebula gardens, creating art that could move even the most hardened warriors to tears, and music that could calm the most violent plasma storms they hadn't engaged in galactic politics for 10,000 cycles. Not during the Manan Uprising, not during the Vori trade wars, not even during the Great Schism that birthed the Coalition. So when a Lumini ship suddenly appeared in the middle of our battle fleet, everyone froze. We just froze. "This is High Speaker Serafina Liar of the Lumini," came the transmission. Their voice possessed the usual musical quality shared by all Lumini. But this time there was something else, something we'd never heard before. Steel. "We have been watching," they continued. "We have been learning. We have made our choice." General Vance Drago, ever the diplomatic expert, demanded they leave the military engagement zone. The Lumini's response was unprecedented. They laughed. The sound shocked everyone into silence. Lumini didn't laugh. They observed. They contemplated. They created beauty, but they didn't laugh. "Tell me, General," High Speaker Serafina Liar asked, "have you ever wondered why we maintain our neutrality?" Before anyone could respond, more Lumini ships materialized from what we had assumed was empty space. Hundreds of them, their crystalline hulls glowing with colors we had never seen them use before. "Not because we are weak," they continued. "Not because we are afraid. We maintain neutrality because we understand the terrible responsibility that comes with power. We choose peace not out of necessity, but from wisdom." That's when we noticed human ships appearing alongside the Lumini vessels. Not the crude warships we'd anticipated, but graceful hybrid designs that combined human ingenuity with Lumini crystalline technology. "The humans," High Speaker Serafina Liar explained, "remind us of something we had forgotten. Sometimes maintaining peace requires standing against those who would destroy it. They didn't ask us to fight, they asked us to teach, to share, to grow." Ambassador Lily Tran's voice joined the transmission. "We never wanted enemies," she said. We wanted teachers, partners, friends. The coalition offered submission wrapped in arrogance. The Lumini offered knowledge wrapped in respect. The human Lumini fleet aligned into formation. It was mesmerizing in a terrifying sort of way, like watching a solar storm and realizing you're about to be caught in its path. "This is your final warning," Ambassador Lily Tran announced. "The coalition can either choose to open genuine diplomatic relations as equals or learn a very costly lesson about underestimating both humanity's determination and the Lumini's resolve." General Vance Drago, his warrior markings now glowing with fury, did what any self-respecting military leader would do. He ordered the attack. I still recall the look on Supreme Commander Dorian Voss's face as he watched the battle unfold. It was the expression of someone who realized not only had they miscalculated, they had been solving the wrong equation entirely. The humans and Lumini moved as one, human tactical brilliance intertwined with Lumini technology we never imagined they possessed. It wasn't a battle, it was a dance, a brutal, beautiful dance that ended in a way we couldn't have foreseen. With the coalition's once mighty battle fleet reduced to rubble, I watched our ships retreat in disarray, unable to suppress a wry sense of cosmic irony. We had feared humanity's aggressive nature would send the galaxy into chaos. Instead, their diplomatic efforts had managed to convince the most peaceful species in the galaxy to rise up in defense. But as High Speaker Serafina Liar would later explain, the Lumini didn't take up arms. They simply stopped pretending they didn't have them. The Lumini had always been an enigma, their civilization predating the coalition by millennia. While we were expanding and conquering, they were creating art. While we were building warships, they were cultivating nebula gardens that gave birth to new stars. "You know what fascinates me most about humans?" High Speaker Serafina Liar once asked me during one of our later meetings. "They look at a star and see both its beauty and its potential. They write poetry about cosmic wonders, while they simultaneously figure out how to harness that power." The Lumini had evolved not through conflict, but through understanding. Their ships weren't built, they were grown. Their weapons weren't forged, they were sung into existence. At least that's what we thought. We had been so wrong. "We watched every species in the galaxy," High Speaker Serafina Liar explained, their form shimmering in colors that made my eyes ache. "We watched them rise, fight, fall, and rise again. We watched them form alliances, break them, and form new ones. We watched the coalition emerge, claiming to bring order, but in truth, only imposing stagnation. Then came humanity. The Lumini observed as humans ventured into space for the first time. They watched as humans dreamed, failed, tried again, failed better, and kept pushing forward. They saw humanity fight amongst themselves, make peace, fight again, but above all, they kept moving forward. "Do you know what made humans different?" High Speaker Serafina Liar asked the Coalition Council. "They look up at the stars and don't see resources to claim or territories to conquer. They see mysteries to explore and wonders to share." The pivotal moment in the Lumini's decision came during what humans called the first contact coffee break. Ambassador Lily Tran, fed up with the coalition's endless grandstanding, invited the Lumini to try something called a mocha latte. The humans didn't offer us tribute, submission, or formal alliances. Instead, High Speaker Serafina Liar recalled with a laugh, one that still makes many of us uneasy. They offered us coffee and conversation. They asked about our art, shared their music, and showed us cat videos. The coalition's intelligence agencies had spent centuries trying to decode Lumini technology. Humanity spent one afternoon sharing pictures of small furry creatures and discussing the philosophical implications of free will, all while sipping caffeinated drinks. When the coalition threatened Earth, High Speaker Serafina Liar continued, "The humans didn't beg for our help. They asked if we would teach them, not how to fight. They already knew that. They asked us to teach them about stellar engineering, crystal harmonics, and the songs that shape reality." The shock wasn't merely the Lumini choosing a side. It was realizing that the peaceful artists we had long dismissed possessed technology that made our most advanced weapons look like children's toys. "We didn't maintain neutrality because we feared war," High Speaker Serafina Liar explained, addressing the stunned Coalition Council. "We maintained neutrality because we had transcended it. But the humans, they showed us that sometimes choosing not to act is itself an act of violence." The alliance between the Lumini and humans wasn't based on military need or political convenience. It was forged through shared coffee, exchanged stories, and mutual fascination. The humans taught the Lumini about determination, the beauty of imperfection, and the joy of trying new things just to see what happens. Besides, Ambassador Lily Tran added with her trademark grin, have you seen what happens when you introduce ancient, hyper-advanced crystal beings to human jazz? The jam sessions are literally stellar. The Coalition's military analysts were left scrambling to comprehend it all. How had humanity formed such a strong alliance in mere months? How had they unlocked Lumini technology that we'd failed to grasp for centuries? The answer came from an unexpected source, a human child visiting the Lumini Nebula Gardens. They're not unlocking anything, the girl said, watching the crystal ships glide through space. They're making music together. That was when we finally understood. The Lumini hadn't given humanity their technology. They had shared their art. Humanity, in turn, had shown them new ways to perform it. What we had seen as weapons were actually instruments in a cosmic symphony. The Coalition sees the galaxy as something to control, High Speaker Serafina Lyer told me. Humanity sees it as something to explore and celebrate. They don't want to master the dance. They want to learn new steps and create their own. The humans had achieved what the Coalition had once thought impossible, not through force, diplomacy, or technology, but by simply being themselves, curious, creative, and surprisingly skilled at making coffee. As Supreme Commander Dorian Voss stated in his resignation speech, we feared humanity would bring chaos to the galactic order. Instead, they brought coffee and jazz to beings of living crystal, and somehow, that was much, much worse for our plans. The Coalition's first attack was flawless, at least on paper. The problem was, we had written the textbook, followed it to the letter, and never thought to question that someone might have read ahead and drawn mustaches on all the important diagrams. Battle formations optimal, General Vance Drago announced proudly. Victory probability calculated at 98.7%. The man and representatives nodded, their probability engines humming with satisfaction. 3 massive Coalition battle fleets moved into perfect formation, weapons charged, shields synchronized, 10,000 years of military doctrine in a display of overwhelming force. And then Captain Elena Valdez laughed. The sound cut through every command channel, every tactical frequency. Not the nervous laugh of someone facing destruction, but the delighted chuckle of someone watching their opponent walk into an expertly laid trap. Thank you for being so predictable, she said. Maestro, shall we begin the concert? That's when the space around our fleets began to sing. The Lumini ships, previously undetectable by our sensors, revealed themselves, not through standard decloaking, but through music. Crystal harmonics rippled through the vacuum, turning space itself into an impossible amphitheater. Our sensor operators screamed as their equipment overloaded, not with weapon signatures or shield frequencies, but with something they could only categorize as jazz in C minor, with quantum characteristics. The human ships moved first, but not as separate vessels. They flowed like water, like a dance troupe that had rehearsed for years instead of months. Mining lasers recalibrated to frequencies that made our shields resonate uncomfortably. Cargo tractors reached out with gravitational fingers, plucking at our formation like strings on an instrument. Impossible, General Vance Drago sputtered. Their technology is inferior. Their ships are outdated. Their weapons weren't weapons at all. High Speaker Serafina Lyer's voice joined the command channel. The Lumini ships pulsed with colors that were almost unbearable to look at. Each crystalline vessel transformed into both instrument and performer, weaving a symphony of destruction in the vastness of space. The human Lumini combat tactics defied every known rule of space warfare. Their ships moved in patterns that our tactical systems dismissed as suicidal, until those patterns turned our own meticulous strategies against us. Coalition dreadnoughts found themselves trapped in an involuntary ballet, caught in overlapping crystal harmonics and repurposed mining gravitics. Escort vessels spun out of control, their crews disoriented but unharmed, as human ships weaved through gaps in our formation that shouldn't have existed. Would you like to know where you went wrong? Captain Elena Valdez asked, her voice playful as if explaining a clever joke. You assumed that because we were less advanced, we had nothing to teach. A squadron of Coalition cruisers fired their primary weapons, but the energy beams hit a wall of crystalline ships, which absorbed the attacks and converted them into pulses of light, painting the battlefield in impossible hues. The Lumini taught us about crystal harmonics, Elena Valdez continued. We taught them about jazz improvisation, Turns out the principles aren't that different. I watched as human mining vessels, now repurposed, use drilling lasers to carve intricate patterns into space itself, creating refraction points for Lumini crystal beams. The combined effect turned our own weapons energy back against us, like a funhouse mirror designed by a mad artist. "Break formation," General Vance Drago screamed. "Regroup." "Oh no," Elena Valdez interrupted. "You're not going anywhere. The concert's not over yet." The Lumini ships pulsed in a synchronized rhythm, each vessel becoming a note in a chord that caused space itself to hiccup. Human ships glided through the gaps in space-time, their inferior engines somehow perfectly attuned to ride the waves of quantum probability generated by the Lumini. Our formidable dreadnoughts, the pride of the Coalition fleet, were swept into an impromptu performance of what humans would later call the dance of the sugar plum failures. Their crews were unharmed but deeply unsettled, and their pride would never recover. "You see," High Speaker Serafina Liar explained, their voice full of amusement and genuine pleasure, "humans understand something you've forgotten. The best music comes from collaboration, not competition. They didn't try to match our technology. They found ways to make their tools harmonize with ours." A human mining vessel, accompanied by 3 Lumini ships, demonstrated this idea by using its gravitational tethers to literally play a Coalition battlecruiser like a percussion instrument. The resulting vibrations disabled the weapon systems of every ship within a 100,000 kilometers radius. "This isn't a battle," Captain Elena Valdez announced, her voice calm and clear. "This is a demonstration. We each had pieces of the puzzle," High Speaker Serafina Liar continued. "The Lumini understood the music of the spheres. We understood the importance of improvisation. Together, we created something new. Not a weapon, but a performance. Not a war fleet, but an orchestra. The final movement of their symphony reduced the Coalition's armada to a collection of incapacitated, though intact vessels. Their crews were alive, but thoroughly confused about everything they thought they knew about physics, warfare, and music. General Vance Drago's last transmission before his command ship succumbed to a particularly energetic rendition of what humans called bebop was simply, "This isn't fair." "Fair?" Elena Valdez's voice was laced with amusement. "No, it's not fair. It's jazz." As I watched the last of our ships helplessly drifting in space, their engines humming an off-key accompaniment to the Lumini's crystal harmonics, I couldn't help but admire the artistry of it all. The Coalition had expected a war. What we got instead was a masterclass in interspecies cooperation and experimental music. "Don't worry," Elena Valdez reassured the defeated forces. "The effect is temporary, but you might find your ships playing random human pop songs for the next few weeks. We're still working out some bugs in the harmony matrix." The Coalition's War Council meeting following our defeat was the shortest on record. Supreme Commander Dorian Voss simply entered, played the battle recordings, and asked, "Any questions?" The silence was broken only by the faint sound of a Coalition dreadnought, still in orbit, broadcasting a human song called "Never Gonna Give You Up." "Well," I said, addressing my fellow council members, "I believe we've been thoroughly outplayed, both literally and figuratively." General Vance Drago, his warrior markings now faint, spoke up. "But how? Their technology was inferior. Their ships were practically antiques. Their weapons weren't weapons at all." Ambassador Lily Tran entered the chamber, accompanied by High Speaker Serafina Liar. They weren't invited. No one had dared ask them to leave. "You saw what you expected to see," High Speaker Serafina Liar added, their crystalline form rippling with unused colors. "You saw primitive mining tools, outdated cargo haulers, and makeshift modifications. What you should have seen was innovation, adaptation, and harmony." The truth was undeniable. The Coalition's mighty battle fleet had been defeated, not by superior firepower, but by what humans called thinking outside the box, a concept that proved deadly effective when combined with Lumini crystal technology, capable of folding space like an intricate origami. "The terms of peace are simple," Ambassador Lily Tran announced. "Equal recognition, free exchange of ideas, and mandatory cultural exchange programs." "Cultural exchange?" Supreme Commander Dorian Voss's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "Yes," High Speaker Serafina Liar confirmed. "The humans believe, and we agree, that most conflicts arise from misunderstanding. Therefore, every Coalition world will host both human and Lumini artists, scientists." They paused dramatically. "And jazz musicians." The horror on the council members' faces was clear. Not at the idea of defeat, we could accept defeat. But the thought of every coalition world being exposed to human music, human art, human innovation, combined with Lumini crystal harmonics. We've already scheduled the first concert, Ambassador Lily Tran added cheerfully. A human Lumini fusion band called Crystal Method, not to be confused with the 20th Century Earth group. They're performing a piece called Symphony of Scientific Methods with footnotes. Several council members fainted. The changes came quickly after that. Human innovation spread through coalition space like a benevolent virus. Lumini crystal technology, once believed to be purely aesthetic, revealed itself to be the foundation of scientific principles we hadn't even begun to grasp. Coffee shops appeared on coalition worlds. Jazz clubs popped up on space stations. The Mechani discovered they had a particular flair for bebop. The Vori started incorporating human dance moves into their combat training. But the true transformation didn't come from technology or culture. It came from the way we began to rethink progress itself. You see, Captain Elena Valdez explained to me over something called a cappuccino. The Lumini mastered the art of working with the universe. We humans mastered the art of trying things just to see what would happen. Put those together, and you get mining lasers that can play music across space-time. I finally understood, though it had actually been an accident. We were trying to make a light show for a concert, and somehow invented a new form of quantum communication. The coalition adapted because we had no choice. It wasn't so much that the coalition was disbanded, but that it was completely reshaped. Now, human and Lumini vessels flew alongside every warship, not as minders or guards, but as collaborators in what they referred to as synchronized space-time performance art with added defensive capabilities. High Speaker Serafina Lyer summed it up succinctly during the signing of the new Galactic Charter. The coalition sought to prevent chaos through the enforcement of order. Humanity showed us that true harmony isn't achieved by enforcing uniformity, but by embracing diversity. And they make remarkable coffee. As I prepared to step down from my role as third speaker, I couldn't help but reflect on our past mistakes. We had once seen ourselves as the pinnacle of civilization, the keepers of galactic order. We had dismissed humanity as primitive and the Lumini as nothing more than decorative. But in reality, it was humanity that showed us that progress isn't about strictly following established norms. It's about being willing to try new combinations, to challenge contradictions, and to dance with the unknown. The Lumini had demonstrated that true strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when to act and the bravery to evolve. Together, they created something revolutionary, a society where military vessels recite poetry during battle maneuvers, where scientific discoveries are accompanied by musical performances, and where the boundaries between art, technology, innovation, and tradition have merged into something magnificent and surreal. Do you know what your real mistake was? Ambassador Lily Tran asked me with a wry smile not long ago. Underestimating you? I ventured. She chuckled, sliding another coffee across the table. No. You thought the galaxy needed controlling. We just wanted to jam with it. And here we are. The coalition persists, but in a transformed state. Our formidable warships now host jazz clubs. Our military forces teach interpretive dance alongside tactical strategy. And out there in the stars, human and Lumini ships glide together in harmony, forming the most advanced defense system ever imagined. We tried to dominate the galaxy, they taught it how to sing.